guys, so the holidays are quickly approaching and it's time to start focusing on some favorite holiday foods. My very first video ever was my pumpkin pie recipe, so it is time for an update. So it's actually the night before I bake my pies, and I've got my crust ingredients all ready to go, and I'm going to make my crust the day ahead, so that's one less thing for me to have to do. Alright, so let's start putting this crust together. Starting off with a 1-to-1 flour blend. This one is better batter. So all I'm going to do is my scale is set to on. It's currently reading zeros and it is set to ounces rather than grams. And I'm looking for 9.2 ounces of my 1-to-1 flour blend. And a quick note about your 1-to-1 flour. Most of them will contain xanthan gum already. This one does. If your blend does not, then it is optional to add it if you would like. Next up is my butter. All I'm going to need for this is a sharp knife. I'm looking for 3/4 of a stick, which by weight would be 3 ounces. I just want to cut it into smaller chunks to make it easier for the processor to combine all the ingredients. So next up is sugar. Make sure that my scale is zeroed, and then I'm going to add 1.3 ounces. And I'm looking for 2.5 ounces of my shortening. And the last of my dry ingredients, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So now I'm just going to put the lid to my processor on and mix this up until it has turned into a sand-like texture. This is definitely one instance where a rubber spatula will be a tremendous help. Now I'm going to let this run on its lowest speed continuously as I drizzle in 5 to 6 tablespoons of ice-cold water. Alright, so this is looking fairly uniform and neat. So all that's left is to wrap it in plastic and throw it in the fridge. And I'm just going to use my rubber spatula again to scrape all the dough out of my processor bowl. Alright, so I'm going to use the plastic to press my dough into a brick-like shape. Alright, and just wrap this up. Cinch it tight. And smooth out the creases as I wrap. If you're in a hurry, you could let this sit for about 2 hours, but the longer the better as far as just getting the flour to absorb as much of that water as possible. So into the fridge with this bad boy, and I will turn it into pie tomorrow. Hey guys, if you're enjoying the video so far, make sure to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and of course hit the bell to make sure that you get notified every time I upload new content. Alright y'all, it is pie baking day. So I've got my oven preheated to 375. Here is my dough. And I just want to get a weight on my dough so that I can divide it evenly between my pie plates. 1 pound, 2.3 ounces. That's 18.3 ounces. 9.1-ish is what I'm looking for. So, I'm going to set that there, zero it out. There we go. 9.1 here. And that one's also 9.1. So each pie plate contains 9.1 ounces of my pie dough. So what I'm going to do now is just get the dough spread out into my pie plate and blind bake them while I prepare my filling. Alright, so I've broken up my dough into smaller chunks to make it a little easier to spread out to the edges of my pie plate. And I'm just going to kind of keep smushing my dough outward using the heel of my hand. And then I'm going to use the heel of my hand and my fingertips to push the dough up the sides of my pie plate. Alright, and then these are going to go into a 375-degree oven while I put together my filling. And by the time my filling is ready to be poured in, these should be finished blind baking. While my crusts are blind baking in the oven, I'm going to mix up my filling. A pumpkin pie is basically a custard pie, meaning it has a base of eggs and dairy, plus additional flavorings and ingredients. By the time I finish whipping up my filling, my pie crust should be ready to be filled. To start my filling, I need 1 cup of sugar. Next up, I need 1 tablespoon of cinnamon. Next up is 1½ teaspoons of ground ginger. 1 teaspoon of ground cloves. And if you use pre-ground nutmeg, you're looking for about 1/4 teaspoon. Or if you're using freshly grated nutmeg, then approximately the same amount. Now, if you don't want to measure out all your own spices, you could use a store-bought pumpkin pie spice blend. You're looking for 5 3/4 teaspoons of spice. And finally, for my sugar mixture, I need 1 teaspoon of salt. And I'm going to go ahead and whisk this all together so that way my spices are evenly distributed throughout my sugar before I add the sugar to my filling. Next up, I'm going to need 2 15-ounce cans of pumpkin or 1 29-ounce big can of pumpkin. And that's going to go straight into my big bowl. Then I like using one of my cans as a rubber spatula holder so that way it's available to me without making a mess. Next up, I need 4 eggs to go into my pumpkin mixture. And of course, remember, always crack your eggs on a flat surface. So before I add the rest of my ingredients, I'm going to go ahead and get my eggs and pumpkin mixed together, which will make it easier to incorporate the other ingredients without having to actually incorporate my eggs once everything's been added. So, I break the yolks first with the tines of the whisk, and stir. There we go. Next up, I'm going to add my sugar mixture. And of course, I want to fully incorporate my sugar and spices before adding any additional ingredients. Finally, I need to add 2 cans of evaporated milk. If you don't know the difference between evaporated and condensed, evaporated is still liquid. And I'm going to slowly incorporate everything until my filling appears uniform. There we go. My pumpkin pie filling is ready, and my crusts are just about ready also. So my crusts are nice and golden brown. There's a few little leopard spots on here, and the edges are looking perfectly toasty. So now I'm going to add about half of my filling to each pie crust. Now what's left is to let these bake At about 40 minutes, I'm going to start checking on them to see how close to done they are. So, my pies are in the oven. I'm going to reduce my temperature to 350. And at about 40 minutes, I'm going to start checking on them. Alright, so my pies have finished baking. I've got them on some cooling racks, and they will sit here and come down to room temperature for probably about 2 hours, at which time I can either cut into them or store them in the fridge until they are ready to be served. Alright, my pie has cooled down and is ready for me to enjoy, which is code for shovel into my face, because, oh my god, pumpkin pie is one of my favorites. So, hopefully it's one of your favorites too, and hopefully you've been inspired to make this delicious recipe at home yourself for this holiday season. Perfection. Just delectable, delicious perfection. So every year for Thanksgiving, I make 2 of these and 2 of my maple bourbon pecan pie, which is also already on my blog and YouTube. Check that one out too, while you're looking for gluten-free pie recipes for the holidays. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications on every new video. And I'll see you guys next time on the Deglutenizer. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy my content, I hope you'll consider supporting me on Patreon for just $2 a month. Patrons receive early access to content, early announcements for upcoming projects, and much more. Help me grow by becoming a patron today.